Wu-Tang. Welcome back once again. Is the incredible Meaningful Times with Friends. Nathan from Newark, Ramshackle Dan, Jason on location, myself, Mean Dave. Well, we're almost at 20 episodes. Can you believe that? It's almost, we haven't even been a full year yet, but almost 2 tens of episodes. That's pretty incredible considering us, our ages. We managed to get along long enough. No one's quit. No one said, I've had enough of this shit. I'm out of here.
At least not out loud.
I'll go ahead and lead off with an apology. I know this is like 2 episodes in a row, back to back, of apologies. But I will say the reason for apologies last time is, my God, was last episode a little heated. Good God, man. I thought we were friends, everybody. What was with all the vitriol over just some bands and a tweet? I didn't think a tweet would put our friendship in such harm's way, Jason, would you have something to say about that? You felt very strongly. Nathan puking? What is he doing?
No, you upset him.
I'm touched by your apology. No, I'm choking on my own spit is what I'm doing. Better to get that out at the top, right? Fucking hell.
That'll lead us great into our next topic.
Oh my God. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, holy shit.
That's making the trailer.
I know it's scary. 30 years ago, that would have been from a bomb. Now he's just choking us.
Shit, just from life.
Yeah.
Can't handle the bomb.
My own body is attacking me.
I mean, Limp Bizkit versus Grateful Dead got pretty fucking intense there.
Well, that's all on the Grateful Dead, man. They'll do that to you.
Limp Bizkit kind of went in again. Limp Bizkit brings out the worst in people. Pretty intense episode. So I just want to apologize for anybody if they were triggered. Any of the tensions caused you to triggered any trauma. Any of that. We actually did a Comedians with Disabilities Act show on Thursday that caused the ASL interpreters to stand up for themselves. And like we did it was a comedian with probably, I guess, on the hierarchy of disability, who had the most disabilities, a parent, and all she was doing was kind of was playing around with the notion that the interpreters were good with their hands under more intimate circumstances. and that's when one of the interpreters stood up and was like, this isn't appropriate. This is, I'm like,
was that in sign language?
No, that's why.
How dare you?
This bitch could hear. That's It was really funny. So, and not funny. It was weird because everybody then tightened up. The show was going amazing. And then we were going to do like a curtain call photo. It was part of SF Sketchfest, which was like a first for us as a group and as some individuals. So just, the nature of today, people kind of want a reason to get upset about anything.
Sensitive ass motherfuckers out there.
Thinking about them, yeah, because it wasn't really, nobody was doing anything of harm to anybody. I mean, I would imagine nobody was punching down. Nobody was, none of that. It was all woke. It was all above board, all wide awake, wide awake. But yeah, just apologies if our last episode was a little too intense for everybody, which then I guess, I don't know if it kind of leads into our topic. We're taking a break from the Battle of the Bads that will all finish up next episode with the semifinals and the finals. And we hopefully, if all things work out, we should have a special guest joining us from the In the Meantime universe, I guess you could say. But we should have a special guest joining us so that we won't have any ties. We'll have 5 of us, so we'll be able to make sure that there's an ultimate winner and loser in every category, loser being the winner. All right. But this topic this week, it was inspired by the chat. This was then me just kind of, try to get a read, get a vibe of the group conscience. And when I suggested it, everybody was like, "Huh?" As usual. You guys chat for a few paragraphs about some shit, and I'm like, "Hey, this would be a good topic on the meaningful times of friends." What would be? That's usually the next question right after a few paragraphs of it, and that is, I want to call this. This is not midlife crisis, but midlife cringe. I want to call it midlife cringe, using a word that makes me cringe, but it's ultimately it was us discussing just sort of random things, from things that annoy us to things that annoy us in ourselves. About, we're all in our late 40s now, we're about to hit our 50s, and kind of coming upon the years. Oh, it started with Nate I think it was Nate in a t-shirt, talking about a t-shirt. I guess, Nate, go ahead, describe
I
it.
was just talking about the fact that I still wear band shirts for shit that I liked 30 plus years ago. And I just never would have imagined, as at this age, like we're recording this in February of 2024. I'm going to be 49 at the end of this month. 50 is coming for me. And I just never imagined that the shit that I liked when I was 15 would still be sort of things that I would still be displaying as part of my identity at this age. I think it's some of what we were talking about was sort of born out of that.
Yes. And language has been brought. By the way, I didn't become a Swans fan until 2020. Jason can attest to this. I've even
I
saw
was
them live.
remiss. I was remiss in my duties. I should have turned him on to Swans like decades ago when
I
I
don't know
was.
if I would have. I don't know if I would have been able to listen to it, like, because I would have
Yeah,
been like, "This music is just the same thing over and over again." That's
pick a note and repeat it. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe I can hear I can hear
What is chord progression? Why do we need chord progressions? Just one chord. That's
yeah,
it.
just over and over and loud. The notion that we've discussed this, it's come up with language. Nate used a phrase about, like, kind of our generation. We get lumped in with Generation X. That's one thing.
Well, Generation X is what, 65 to 79, something like
They
that?
they lump our years in there, but the fact is, they were calling Generation X the people in their 20s when we were still in high school. So that's where I kind of, it's this whole notion that everything has to fit neatly into they were trying to label us Generation Y, I remember at the time, which, in an entendre sense, yes, why bother? But the whole notion now that they just keep wanting to easily label so people can pick on each other easier. That's really the whole point of it, so that millennials can that's the Generation X. People say, okay, boomer. They don't even know what the boomers refer to. The baby boomers, which are our parents' generation for the most part, and then after that, it's Generation Z, which I don't even know, that just makes them sound like zombies. But the talk in the chat more or less revolved around whether or not that our generation seems to be one that doesn't want to let it go. And I was asserting that I'm not sure if it's so much letting it go as much as it just stays with us. We've been heavily discussing a band from a negative perspective, but a band that still had its claws into people of our generation long after, I would say, its relevance, or whatever. But the Grateful Dead and bands from the 60s and 70s, having an influence on, remember the Doors movie came out, we were all in junior high, and then people, like, that was their introduction to the Doors, was Val Kilmer playing Jim Morrison effectively. And then people went and listened to the Doors, and I don't think anybody's not listened to Led Zeppelin or the Beatles during this entire time. And then people even go back to the Beach Boys. There's a lot of people that, Beach Boys gets brought up a lot, and that's as corny as it gets to me. I'm actually amazed by how many people like the Beach Boys. But that's just talking music. If you're talking like just culture in general, I guess we'll just go around just to kind of see what you think. Because I just said, let's just talk about midlife cringe, the things that sort of, whether it's bothers us about ourselves or bothers us about this whole notion, because I'm more bothered by the notion that, yeah, I already knew, I felt like an old man when I hit junior high. And then the stuff that, yeah, I've mostly been into since in junior high. Yeah, I've been a part of Arrested Development since then, and comfortably so. And through its heyday, and then didn't start feeling like people were accosting me for it until probably the last 15 years, when there's like, oh, you're a little too much Soundgarden, Dave, which is just not that's not even my favorite band. It's the
No, I think you're just the right amount of Soundgarden, Dave.
Thank you there, biceps. So
I think we should start with Nathan.
Yeah, let's start with Nathan. Nathan, it's your fault.
Okay, I think what got me on this kick was partially what I just mentioned earlier, that, you know, my age, always around my birthday is a huge factor in sort of where my mental state is at, like in dwelling about the fact that I'm almost 50. But back in November, I went with Jason to go see Skinny Puppy. They're my favorite band over the course of my life, and I'm assuming yours too, right, Jay? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I hadn't seen them in about 10 years. I've seen them on every tour they've done since 92. But I don't think they toured for about a decade. And this was their last tour ever. And when 10 years goes by, like the difference between when you're like in your late 30s to your late 40s is apparent, both in like the band, the way they look now, like in their 60s, but in the crowd itself. It's like largely people in their late 40s and into their 50s. And I think there's about 3 categories of people you see at a show like that. Industrial goth scene is sort of a niche scene, but you're going to see your everyday schlubs like me dressed in a black t-shirt and jeans. You're going to see people who are kind of cosplaying as goths. They're going to a show, so they're dressing up. And then you're going to see people who are like 50-something and still a goth. And that sort of thing weirds me out a little bit, just to think that there are people out there that must have peaked somewhere in high school 30-something years ago and have chosen to stay in one lane for 3+ decades. And that's what got me to thinking when we were chatting about the fact that this sort of seems like something of our generation, because we all probably know a guy who hasn't skated in 20 years that still dresses like a skater, has a couple kids, drives a minivan, but still dresses like a skater for some reason. Are you still a skater if you haven't skated in 20 years? I don't know. Like, I don't remember when I was a kid, my dad having a buddy who was a beatnik. I don't remember there being a dude in the 80s who was a greaser, who was like, well, I was a greaser back in the 50s. I'm a greaser now. You know, like, do any of you remember the character Disco Stu from The Simpsons?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. So in the 90s, the joke was that no one would fucking dress like a 70s guy 20 years after the fact. And I don't know if that joke would even apply anymore, because people don't age out of their look anymore. Well, not all, many do, but a lot of people our age seem to have chosen their lane and stayed with it. And I guess that's what my thought process was, that one thing that just kind of bugs me about people our age is sort of a permanent tribalism that I see developed in a lot of people. We've all joked about people we know that are sort of stuck in a look. And so I guess that's where I was coming from in our whole chat thing.
Well, what's funny too, Nathan, is like, to quote your favorite movie, like Dr. Evil cuts down Austin Powers and said there's nothing more pathetic than an aging hipster. It's like basically the same joke.
Yeah, essentially.
Food for thought. One of the things you mentioned in there was we didn't see a lot of people that looked like, I would say, grown children when we were going, and there probably were some, but they would maybe a little harder to spot. There would always, it would seem like the guy that would still wear the band shirts, and it would be, we would think that, you know, and they usually didn't have any kids. Might be like a friend of your parents that they didn't, you know, be the one person still smoking weed in the 90s or something, but it did seem a little more odd. There was a joke by a comedian who I knew when I was started. His name was Jesse Elias, and he was a very funny dude, and he had a great joke about how our generation, he was a little younger than us, but he still was, he had a joke that I don't remember it so well, but I do remember the gist of it was, we become and remain the kids that we would have wanted to have had if we had kids, but we don't want kids either. It's just we become the adults and the kids that we wanted to have raised in our image. as one, and it was very poignant notion because I'm like, there's a part that I mean we were what is it? We are literally the Toys R Us mantra of I don't want to grow up. I'm a Generation X kid or whatever.
Well, I had a weird. Well, I got two things really. First of all, I looked pretty much like this in high school, minus the gray beard.
Break out the hat, man. Break out the hat.
Yeah, that hat's a classic.
Come on.
So I have found this today, the old hat that I wore like every day, rain or shine, sun or cloudy, whatever. And I would wear it down all the way like this. It's a little moth-eaten. Like get some holes around here, but I still have it. So I don't know. It's just something I kept. And I still have T-shirts from back then that I will wear.
Didn't you lose your virginity in that hat?
As a matter of fact, I did. Yes.
Or was Ramshackle Dan watching? What the hell? Ramshackle cuck. Yeah.
In any case, I don't know. I still have the hat, my old hat. I don't wear it anymore, but it's like sitting in my closet, which is why it's all moth-eaten. But then after I graduated from high school, I went through a phase. Well, once I actually more like when I hit 21 and was able to start going to bars and picking up guys or whatever. Like I went through this transitional phase where I started dressing cute. I tried to get into gay costume, gay drag or whatever, so I could like meet people and hopefully have sex with them. So I went through a long period of time where I kind of dressed like sort of a yuppie kind of a thing, for a great deal of time. And then eventually I kind of reverted back to my natural state, which is what I look like nowadays, And so I kind of decided that I think the real midlife cringe is actually worrying about midlife cringe. That's like, I think that hanging on to like you're like feeling like, like the old guy at the Puppy concert who came up and put his arm around me and I turned around thinking it was somebody I knew. And he's like some old dude, just like me, he's like, what the fuck happened to us, man? Like we used to be young and like cool, but look at us now, man. He was obviously drunk. Some stranger. But it's like, yeah, look at the alternative. We could be fucking dead, or we could just be incredibly boring and staying home and not going out to see one of the greatest bands that has ever existed doing some cool shit on stage. You know what I mean? So I think like the real midlife cringe is worrying about midlife cringe. Fuck that shit. Who cares? Be who you are. And if you want to, continuously, I mean, I have God knows how many Skinny Puppy shirts I have. I could probably go like a month without repeating a Skinny Puppy shirt.
That's amazing.
So it's like, fuck it. It's like support the people you like, support the things you like, be into the shit you like. And if you don't look like, some generic, every man, instead you look like a generic, like skater guy or a generic whatever look you have. Fuck it. Who cares? Worrying about it is for the kids, let the kids worry about, oh, look at that old guy over there, don't be the old guy worrying about being the old guy. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, Nate.
I wasn't yucking anybody's yum. I was just talking about our
generation in general. It was yuck. I can bring it up. You're the one who started the conversation. Nah, I'm just fucking around. But yeah,
first of all, yucking everybody's yum is a cringe statement.
Fair enough. I'll give you that.
Next thing he's gonna be asking if I'm picking up what he's throwing down.
No cap. For real.
And secondly,
right?
I didn't realize you were that into the Young and the Restless, Jason. That's a pretty sweet hoodie. I was more of a Days of Our Lives kind of guy, but respect, man. But generally speaking, I didn't really think about it. I've never really been like, you guys have always been more into some sort of definitive fashion and some sort of definitive style. I've always been kind of just floating between like everything.
You were definitely more normie, I think, than the rest of your crew back in the day, for sure.
I don't know if I'd even call it normie. No, there's something like American Psycho fucking sterile to the man from a child, like from the environment that he was raised in.
He was the king of the groovy kind of shirt,
Right. I dated this girl briefly, I want to say for like a couple months. This is the only time this ever happened. I brought her over to Jason's house once, And Jason just looks at me like, I don't remember what he said to me, but he's like, you can do better. But she and I went on a double date with Dave, and she and her friend. I had her bring. I don't know why, but like 'cause when I lived in El Granada, and I had her bring a friend for Dave.
Oh
And she,
God. Oh, I
yeah.
think. Yeah, oh God, I totally forgot about this.
And
Wow.
anyways, her friend later told her, she's like, you need to get away from that guy, meaning me, not Dave. And she said she actually made the American Psycho comparison.
That's
Were you
funny.
talking about Huey Lewis in the news or something?
Roxette.
As far as I've known Ramshackle Dan, like it's funny that he based on his interests, he's right because we all would kind of wear our interests on our shirts, in a sense. I would say you guys kind of experimented more with, like you wearing your hats and other kinds of things. I more or less just adopted the t-shirt, jeans, or later Dockers or whatever, like kind of a weird blend of skater and metal hesher, but it wasn't necessarily a style as much as just comfort. I'm all about comfort. Like I wear double XL t-shirts, not because they look good on me. They actually make me look fatter than I am, but because I need room in my armpits. I don't like when the shirt's right up in my armpits. So a lot of what I kind of appear as is more. I have my long hair because I don't like getting haircuts. I would like to get a haircut just so I don't have hair going all over around. But now it's more a matter of people just. It would be harder to get a haircut and then have to reintroduce myself to everybody. But I've done it. I've done it. I've done it. I've clipped my head and then people be like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "It's Dave, motherfucker." My face just it changes everything, and they get in shock too. People are kind of like, "Oh my God, I can't." Like it's weird, and it's annoying just having to deal with all of that. Whereas with Ramshackle, yeah, it's always a same color T-shirts. The only signifying factor in all of Ramshackle's wardrobe that I remember is an A's hat. That would be it. And we've discussed it before. Apparently, it's his fandom of Dennis Eckersley.
Yeah, that was a seventh grade thing, and then it moved into just a blank hat later, and then eventually
no hat. Yeah, no hat.
Yeah, no hat. But I mean, that's not even like that's barely, that's not even a fashion thing. Anyways, I've never really like had a definitive way of dressing or anything, and I've always kind of floated between social groups. Like I learned a lot about music, shit that I wouldn't have learned from anybody else, from you guys. Especially, I spent a lot of time growing up with Dave and Jason, and just was exposed to a whole bunch of really cool shit. And then, I'd hang out with those other people that are more, collegiate. And then I played a lot of basketball, like a lot of pickup basketball. And I liked sports and I always played in that stuff. And you guys hated that shit. And it was always funny when like Jason or Dave was in my PE class. But so I've always just kind of floated around, never really stuck to an identity, never really felt married to like a music or a scene. And like, Dave and I host open mic, we played in bands. Jumping between, the band that Dave and I had was also like it had no sound, right? It was like
there wasn't a genre. It was indicative more of Ramshackle's interests, which you wouldn't even really be able to pick it out from the sound. Probably closest would be Violent Femmes, but I don't even think of you as a Violent Femmes fan. Like
no, their first album was amazing. The rest of it was garbage, but like. No, I mean your drumming is way better than the guy with his freaking Civil War snare drum. Anyways, the point is though, we would play with all sorts of different types of groups. We'd play with acoustic groups, we'd play with your hardcore people, and everyone was cool with it because it was strange and it was musical. And so as you get into kind of like growing up, like even in a workplace where, as you can tell from my backdrop, I'm a professional. I work in a corporate setting, and it's like I don't fit in there, but I'm able to get by. And then when I'm outside of there, I don't even like I have a separate part of, speaking of being American Psycho, I like have a separate portion of my closet just for my work clothes. Like there, it's like basically being a UPS driver. I put that crap on and then I take it off and I don't touch it until I have to go back in again. And so as you start to get older, it's a little bit different. I don't identify with anything or any sort of scene or any sort of thing. I like what I like, and it changes. And I'm into, just learning about different shit and picking up new skills. and I'm gonna learn how to shoot an air gun so I can kill that fucking woodpecker that's driving me up the wall, and then that'll be another thing. And my kid is really good at archery, so I'm gonna have him teach me how to shoot bow and arrow. I don't know. I guess the only thing I never really learned how to do is dance like a maniac. But other than that, yeah. So the whole midlife crisis thing is the age is really manifesting in just bodily pain. That's uncommon. And like it's a cliche thing. Like you start coughing and it's like, oh my God, am I getting a hernia? Or like what we saw Nathan, Nathan just like swallowed spit down the wrong tube and like, we almost lost him.
Almost took me out.
Yeah. So anyways, I like when Nathan brings it up because it reminds me that I'm old. And it's just another aspect of like the different like psychological states. I think I jumped from psychological states and identities. So it doesn't really hit me as hard as a traditional midlife crisis, but I'm sure when people look at me, they're like, that is a middle-aged person.
I think part of how we got into this conversation was sort of related to one of our last topics, which was talking about those Lord of the Rings memes and how at this age we process information. I feel like that's sort of how we got into this topic in the first place, was you sort of ribbing me about being sort of like, huh? I don't pay attention to shit anymore. Like, and I feel like ramshackle having a kid, I've noticed with a lot of people that have kids, you sort of have a lifeline to shit that you otherwise probably wouldn't pay attention to at all, just because you have a young person living in your home.
Attention to. He didn't know about it any more than you did. It was from an SF Gate article.
Of course it was.
And Jason just flat out, his body was just rejecting it full force. To look into it didn't reveal anything. It wasn't a Rubik's Cube to solve to figure out why was this. I think I think anybody's biggest beef was like, why did someone write an article about it? But then also, I'm not that surprised by seeing an article. It's not the first time I've seen an article either based on social media posts or tweets. Ever since the news has comprised of, all right, this event happened, and then these tweets or these posts on social media, citing those things as relevant to the news article. And because that's been somewhat normalized, to see an article that is completely just birthed from an inside joke that ain't even that inside, and then to see your guys, kind of, I don't want to call it faux outrage, but it was just sort of one of those things where I'm like, you guys you're not on the shuffleboard court about this shit, okay? You guys are part of still stuff that it's not that hard to figure out oh, this guy made one bad joke, and then this person's making another bad joke in response to that bad joke. And then there were a few more bad jokes that came around. And I'm saying bad joke on your behalf. I actually thought they were funny just because they were stupid. And I like stupid stuff that I can, whatever. It was fine to me. But I think we all agree the article was just that.
Yeah, I don't think the kid thing has to do with the Lord of the Rings thing, because
Not at all. No.
I saw that shit before. But there are things like I do like listen to Olivia Rodrigo and go, that is the most like suicidal dark shit for little kids to listen to. I probably have more exposure to Taylor Swift's music, and that's what was the first thing I thought of when you were talking about Cringe, is like I just don't understand it. I've listened to plenty of it, and it is the most mediocre shit like imaginable. It is like the epitome of mediocre shit, and I'm just like, and that's one of the times I will chalk it up to being a little bit older. Although I'm factoring that in, but I'm confident enough in my ability to decipher pop music and hooks and like really good pop music, where the psyop isn't some sort of fucking Joe Biden, Taylor Swift conspiracy. The psyop is like fucking force feeding this chick down our throats. She's like a mediocre singer with mediocre pop songs with mediocre hooks, and she's mediocre looking, and it just doesn't fucking make sense to me. So that one, Dave, I think maybe we can chalk up to my age, but I don't know. That's a conspiracy that I'll buy into. I don't know about the whole political part though.
Gotcha. One of the things that I pointed out in this kind of any of this thought process, that this stuff mostly it occurs to people mostly who care, as was Jason mentioned, about the notion of getting older, as if like it's I've been fine with getting older since we were children. I couldn't wait to get older. I hated everybody our age. You guys were always interested in older people. and not out of some like you have to have respect for the elders kind of notion. You just genuinely talk to adults and even old folks, and more than I knew anybody else doing that. And you know, getting information out of parents, out of, you know, other people. I think it only matters to people that, yes, like you said, are either are young and still want to feel like, you know, they're going to live forever in this youth, and the older people who are trying to fuck the younger people, because they're, you know, we are a vampiric species. One way to make you feel like you're not getting any older, what is always the classic trophy wife, trophy husband, trophy fuck, whatever, you know, just to feel like you still got it. I don't think that's ever been of any interest to at least the three of you, and youth has always been, you know, I don't want to say wasted on the young. When I was growing up, I was always attracted to older women, like the thought of older women that were like obviously, you know, too old for me, but like, you know, when as we get older, you know, it's funny that our generation would then look at all these young teachers that are banging their students, and we're like, man, wish that was going on when I was growing up. You know,
Oh, when the MILF cougar phenomenon happened in the porn world, that was right in my alleyway for
but
sure, man. Yeah,
what's
like
funny is looking at all these teachers and all these kids. They look like they're in the same age group. They're not like there's some point at which, and I remember it. I always said it was something in the water. Looking at us when we went to grad night in 1994, that we all looked like we were still in junior high, and we were surrounded by all of these fucking high school students that looked like they were in their 20s, in their late 20s, early 30s, with like 5 o'clock shadows and shit. They're all like 5'11" to 6 foot or taller, and I'm like, our class, we were all under 6 foot primarily. We had like a handful of people that were over 6 foot, and everybody just looked like fucking hobbits, you know. There, tie that into there, man. We were from the Shire here in Newark, but
I don't get it.
yeah, no doubt. And so my point being though that if like you said, it matters to you if that, yeah, if aging is a concern. I don't like it when people try to throw it in my face as if it's a bad thing. It's a natural thing, and I'm always just like, you're gonna get there. And the more that you want to talk about holding on to it, the people that are really holding on to it generally aren't even there yet. They're the ones that want to feel like, you know, oh yeah, you're you know, some old thing or whatever, and it's like, oh, you're already holding on to it when you have no reason to hold on to something. And then as you get older, yeah, you're gonna be the motherfucker in your 30s and 40s with hair dye, trying to fit in with a trend with some, that's I anytime I see people trying to like wear the clothes, do the fashions. My favorite is seeing balding friends of mine who spike their withered balding hair like on the you know, like they spike it. It's like it's already like you can see the scalp clearly. The sun's going to sunburn it if it has a chance, but they put the product in it to spike it up. And I'm like, man, that's the way to go. I
like
didn't.
a little Guy Fieri sort of situation.
Oh yeah, and I'm just like, man, I would just shave it. Like I got this weird little dent in my head right here that only I noticed because I was carrying years ago. I think it's from this. Years ago when I was drinking, I was hanging out with our dear friend Chris Nornberg and some other friends at a bar, and we thought it would be funny. We were going to stay at a hotel next door, and Chris and I thought it'd be funny if I was walking with carrying Chris. He's so light, I could actually hold him like I was carrying him over the threshold. And I was carrying him, and then the people we were with were way too far ahead, so they weren't turning around to see us, and we were like, God damn it. And so then I put him down, and then they turned around to see where we were, and I was like, quick, hurry up. And then I held Chris again, but I lost my balance, and I dropped Chris, and I went head first into the concrete. And I ended up having like a weird, I had a big old like scab right where this weird dent in my part is. And so now I have only this one little square of, it's like right there, this one little square of thinning hair that's just like, oh, I'm like balding in this one little wedge in my part that just looks, and it's funny to me because I just like look at it and it's like, how bad is it today? And the only reason I'd want to clip my head would be just so that for ease. just to live easier without having to brush my hair and all. Everything's utilitarian. Is that the right word? I'm most of. I like how I look. I like how I dress and stuff. I like what I like putting. I was putting patches on clothes, like because there's the whole patch trend in the gutter punk culture, and I wasn't trying to look like those fucking bums. I was like, no, I like putting patches over holes in my clothes so my clothes can last longer that feel comfortable. So I got patches on jeans and patches on shit long before people were doing that out of style. I remember one time I got off a BART train in Hayward or whatever when it was stopped, and I was wearing one of my patch jeans. My mom sews my patches too. I don't do it. I'm not cool. Some kid was like, "Hey, cool jeans," and I was like, "Oh, thanks." I'm like, you wouldn't say that if you knew how old I was. But yeah, I don't know. It again, these things are less about style and more about, like, I guess, what do you feel comfortable kind of being? Because the Melvins are my favorite band. I don't look like any of them. I mean, I'm Mexican, for fuck's sake. Yeah, but I look like a lot of the people from a lot of the bands that I go see. I guess from the stoner, heavy culture or whatever. They end up looking. This is the archetype. It's long hair, beard, and everybody looks like some Jesus fucking skin on a select make your own character video game. So I don't know. So has this been cringe enough for everybody? Are we cringing?
So do you like you're interacting with a lot of younger comedians though, right?
Oh, that's thank you for bringing that up, because that was going to be my other point. The whole cringiest part of this for me is I'm part of a subculture and a world. My job is within stand-up comedy, which is so desperate these days to be relevant, another buzzword, which just means popular in today's vernacular. They don't mean relevant. Everything's relevant in a matter of speaking. E equals MC squared. Fucking prove this shit, man. The way that people are using the word relevant and in terms of today means, are you popular? It doesn't mean, are you relevant? Because in a literal sense, everything is relevant. However, if you're speaking about in terms of what the whole the general collective conscience, fact is, if you're talking about that, I don't care how popular and relevant you think you are, everything is irrelevant, because not everybody knows about everything right now it's most popular. Popular movies, Nathan doesn't know about. Popular music right now, Jason doesn't know about. Popular, the only reason why Ramshackle Dan knows about anything that might be popular with any young people is because of his kid, and it's most likely children's programming or the music. I didn't even know what Caillou was until my buddy who has a daughter. Caillou you've seen the cartoon. It's a cartoon of these dumbass kids. And his name's Caillou, and he has stupid music. And if you listen I only know it because my buddy made a song with the Caillou N-words, with the AZ at the end. And then he got dragged on social media for the title of that song, but he was talking about just young kids, kids that are, they're Caillou ninjas, all right, whatever. And so when I see these kids that now go to hardcore shows, which I'm not even into a lot of this new hardcore they're listening to. They do these weird, like almost like they're doing karate, like a combination of seizures, spasms, and karate, like with these moves in the pit. It's not a circle pit. It's them all doing these weird arm swingings and kicking their legs, and they're flipping, and they're just the dumbest looking shit that you'd want to do to music. And so I just put it to the songs from Caillou whenever I see it on social media, and it fits. And oddly enough, it really fits, because these kids are all small, and it's like, yeah, if they did that in a pit with like old school metalheads, somebody might get their ass handed to them. If those old school metalheads are physically fit, and a lot of them aren't, they have bad knees, and they wouldn't even be able to take down these wiry ass kids anymore. So anyway. But yeah, the comedy world tends to be the most cringe about cringe, because and that's the thing, that it's all of these personalities of trying to sound like they're so unique and themselves, finding their voice, all this horse shit. And it's like they're not. They're desperately trying to find something to latch on to appear to sound like they have a voice, a unique voice, and an identity and a perspective. But in the end, it's this very thing we're talking about, of just being desperate and thirsty for an identity that fits in with younger people, and trying to appeal to that demo. And that's why I think a lot of stuff's watered down in entertainment, because it ceases to be just people being themselves that are good at what they do, and it becomes more of people who know how to overmarket themselves. And I don't want to necessarily say it's mediocrity. There's a lot of mediocrity that thrives, that's way more ambitious, but it overall affects the quality of our stars. And we aren't our system today doesn't generate a lot of very impressive people, a lot of chum. I don't know. And I'm one of them. I don't blame it. That's the reason I got a job, man. I can thrive as a mediocre comedian. So I don't fucking, I'm like, hey, these motherfuckers can do it. So can my old ass. I'll be there being a cool old man, collecting my irrelevant money to be cringe. So there we go.
That's what I meant by just the right amount of Soundgarden, Dave.
Thank you, man. Hey, he's dead. The motherfucker's dead.
He's definitely just the right amount of Soundgarden now.
Yeah, yes, man. So I think we've said what we said we need to say. We got it.
Well, I did want to I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but I did want to mention that E equals MC squared is actually relativity, not relevance. But other than that, you're right on.
I don't know. I was talking about, isn't it relevant, or is about everything's relevant? What is it? It's MC squared.
Relativity.
Yeah, theory of relativity, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The theory of relevance is something entirely different.
Oh, really? Is it? Oh, fuck. Really, you ain't scientists. You can't prove.
I watched Oppenheimer, man. I know what I'm talking about.
You didn't watch it. You just watched it. That's right now.
Yeah, I saw Napoleon too, and I thought Joaquin Phoenix was terrible. He was awful. Yeah, he was. I kept expecting him to say "dude" at the end of his sentences. When he's addressing people, it seemed like just some guy like barely attempting to act.
It would have been better if he was doing Napoleon as the Joker. That would have been better. The Joker's Napoleon. But whatever. All right. Well, moving on. Our next topic, and this has been a long-standing discussion in the chat, but when we started this podcast, but we're circling back to it because we in our discussion of trying to find topics, find the right time to talk about. And I'll let Nate and Ramshackle take point on this, because this has been somewhat of a topic of their I don't know quite what to call it, their focus and disdain, but it's all about hikers, the fact that they go missing. Not exactly sure. Let's let these two guys take the helm here.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Okay, so I think we discussed free solo climbing, maybe our second episode that we did.
Yeah.
So I think this sort of piggybacks onto that. When Ramshackle started introducing stuff related to the free solo climbing into our chat, I think the stuff that obviously, as usual, I was pulling out of SF Gator, the San Francisco Chronicle, to this shit, always used the phrase experienced hiker. And I think I started looking around the internet and finding that a lot of newsrooms from all over the country mirror the exact same language. So it's not just specific to the bullshit media we have locally. The fact that there are people that apparently go out and walk, and they're considered experienced at it, in that, it's always some asshole who goes climbing in the mountains on a trail when it's like during a snowstorm and negative 20 degrees out, or some guy who gets lost in the desert when it's 120 degrees out in the summertime. Somehow this always ends up in the news. And I think there was a story I passed on to you recently about a guy whose body they just found. And I think we talked about that dude 6 months ago when he first went missing. So I don't know. Did Ramshackle also pass on experienced hiker material? I don't remember.
I mean, periodically, yeah. It comes up. It's like once a week. You can either find on SF Gate or CNN. It's pretty mainstream fodder, and it's weird because it's almost like they're drip feeding it to you. Like once a week, you'll get some sort of either a person disappearing, a person dying. It's never even like an injury. It's like they disappear, they die, or their body is found. It's one of those three things, and it's every week. And it's very strange. And to your point, the wording is also very similar. They're always using that. And I don't know if that's just a stylistic thing, meaning, people just copy what they see. Or it's some sort of like subliminal thing where they're like, even experienced people like are exercising and going going missing. So maybe you guys shouldn't exercise. Just stay in your house. Like I don't know. I as conspiratorial as I am, I don't actually think this one's a conspiracy. I think it's just lazy copy. And and my whole rant about the free solo thing. I don't want to like restate everything.
I'll restate it. Whatever. Who cares, man? You're good. State.
I don't want to. No, the whole point is like you have these like you had that movie Free Solo. You had that stupid TV tower movie where those girls climbed to the top, and then the ladder fell down. And it's like you have these story arcs in movies, or you have these story arcs in life, right? Like there's two types of like struggle and triumph. There is like when life circumstances, like Lorenzo's Oil, as boring of a movie as that is, and as weird as Nick Nolte's accent is in that movie, their kid had a disease and they like overcame it, right? Or like Star Wars, right? There's like this evil like empire trying to like take over the galaxy, and these rebels are trying. And then there's shit like Free Solo where this guy like gets himself into trouble, and then you're like trying to. I don't root for these people to get out of trouble. It's like you fucking did it to yourself. It's like who cares?
Where does cruising fall into your scale?
You talking about like looking for strange dick?
Well, undercover looking for strange dick, trying to find a killer.
Particularly.
Yeah,
that's great. I mean, he's trying to help like stop murders. Like that's great. But
and he's experienced.
Go out there and you fucking like put yourself in danger, and then you're expecting like people to feel sorry for you. It's like, first of all, why are you doing it, right? Like, what is the hole in your soul? And this is where I was starting. I don't want to go back into the material, but like, what are like, why are you doing this? Like, what is missing in your life that you have to go out and do something dangerous? And you could do skydiving or whatever it is, any sort of extreme sports. It doesn't have to be hiking or experienced hiking or free solo climbing, but like, why are you putting yourself in danger? Like, what is it about your life that you have so little meaning that you need to go out there and create this meaning by putting yourself in danger? And it's really fucking rude unless you're a hermit, because you have your love. That was the whole free solo argument Dave and I got into on our like the original meaningful times, is like this guy has like a fiance and she's like miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only is it pointless, it's also worse than pointless. It's like a net negative, because you're like making other people worry about you just because you feel dead inside. And it's like, I won't name who on here, but like, when one of you was cutting yourself, like at least like that's less dangerous. You more chewed on yourself. But like,
was Jason cutting himself too?
Wasn't Nathan.
Jason.
But like, I get it, right? You want to fucking feel something. Is everything real? Like, what am I? But like, these people are usually adults, like with families, and they're still doing this sort of fucking extreme cutting. And it's like, I just don't understand it. And then to put this into a movie form, or that fucking dude who got trapped under a rock and he cut off his own hand. I can't remember what that one was.
127 hours.
It's all the same shit. It's like, why would you identify with this person? Like, you did it to yourself. So the story arc doesn't make sense. Anyways, so whenever I see experienced hiker, I'm just like, fucking good. Like, really, like you asked for it. So you tempted fate.
I want to make some movie posters for 127 hours. You did it to yourself.
He did.
He
did it to himself again.
Movie poster for Irreversible. You were asking for it.
Yes.
But these are hikers, though. I mean, I don't think hiking necessarily was like. I mean, I'm just only being devil's advocate here. As far as hiking, they're just going walking. They're not. You wouldn't think of it to be so treacherous, I would imagine.
They put themselves in those situations of treachery, meaning I can go for a walk right now. Like, in fact, my neighborhood has like a sidewalk and shit. It's fucking amazing. It's like there's like a median away from the cars, and I can go walk to my heart's content. There's trees, there's birds, there's all sorts of cool stuff. And then I can walk back home, And then there's like a ton of mountains and like lakes in here, and I could go do that too. But at a certain point, like, have you ever been? I don't know if you guys have been to Yosemite. I got stuck with a group when I was younger,
Yeah.
and there was a girl that I liked, so I kept with it. But like at a certain point, I'm like going up in this. It's like Half Dome. It's fucking snowing, and I keep falling because I don't have hiking shoes. Because as you guys can tell, I'm not a big hiker. I'm just like, this is the most insane shit I've ever seen. And like, why would people do this? And I was on another hike in Kauai, again, not knowing, and just falling over the place. It was riddled with mud. And then like people were walking, people had babies, and I could barely keep my footing. And it's like, and that was only because I was ignorant. I didn't know what was going on, but like people do this, like they seek this out. This is their weekend activity. And in some people, this is their profession.
It sounded like you were having a midlife crisis when you were a child, chasing this woman up Half Dome.
No, I was just trying to get to know her better
Yeah,
in a
whatever.
biblical sense.
How cringe is that? I do a lot of walking. I don't drive anymore, mainly out of when I got my second DUI. I just made the decision that I was like, I never wanted to drive in the first place, so let me experiment with my life without driving. But in that first year of my recovery and subsequently after, I did a lot of walking. I walked. I remember one night because I didn't know the buses very well, but I walked all the way from San Leandro, to Union City. That was a good like 2.5, 3 hours at night. I've done walks of that length in areas, and the funny part to me is people will be like, why don't you just take a Lyft or an Uber? Why do you, this, that? And I'm like, I don't mind. I like walking. I do like walking. It serves its purpose of getting from here to there cheaply, with just, whatever expended energy of my own. And a lot of times, this will come from people who pay money to drive to a gym, to get on a treadmill and walk in place. Which to me is it. If you're asking me that question, what you're telling me is because I understand at one point what they think they're doing. They don't even understand their own argument. They think I'm wasting time, and that time, because ultimately what that all that is I'm merely walking as a point of need. If I have a destination and I can walk it in a reasonable manner and feel comfortable doing it, I will. And I'm getting from point A to point B. Driving, if you're going to drive, is going to cost a lot of money, as well as time. It saves you some time in your day when you're trying to cram in all this shit in your day. But a lot of times, when you're in living that life, you then get caught up in the agitation of, oh, this is, now I'm stuck in traffic. And what is traffic going to do? It's going to cost you time. There's a lot of times where it's just it's the same amount of time. I ride a lot of public transportation. I take BART. I ride the buses, and it requires a lot of patience doing that. So I don't mind a good walking if I have to. I don't like walking in the rain, but I've done that too. I did a trek in Yosemite when I was a child, and it was a 40-mile hike, and I would never do it as an adult because when I look at it, I was looking to adults for the guidance to do that trip. Looking back on it, I'm like, man, that was fucking insane. My mom could have lost her kid, could have paid $50 to, but then again, looking at it today, I'm like, oh, you could have paid $50 to get rid of your kid and probably made some more money on the back end for a liability lawsuit or something. But at this it's just, to me, I just remember looking at it like, man, anything could have happened on that trip. There were so many points that were dangerous. And yeah, I do agree with Ramshackle's kind of argument. Same thing if like you're going walking and you encounter a mountain lion, the mountain lion just doing its mountain lion thing and being like, bitch, you suck, you don't have claws, boom, you're dead. It does kind of serve you right,
And you're talking about walking to get from point A to point B because you are at a place and you're trying to get to another place. Like there's a utility to that. A lot of hikes is you are literally going to a point and then going all the way back.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, it's no purpose. You're not.
There's some Sisyphus shit about it.
Yeah, you're not hiking out west for a better life and to go gold prospecting. No, you're not.
Well, and I'm assuming the person that gets called an experienced hiker is somebody who is in some way wealthy or has achieved some status in life where they have the time to just go walking all over the place. Like I that's sort of what I get the feeling is that, like, it's like what they do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just that this is someone who goes out for a walk to get some exercise. Apparently, this is like their life's pursuit.
Yeah, that was my point from like episode 2 or whatever it was. And I went like, this is like the epitome of white privilege. Is like you are, and the term I use is manufacturing struggle. Like your life is so fucking easy that you're gonna go make shit difficult for yourself because you have nothing else. Like you have no force pushing against your fucking momentum because you're just living the fucking life. And that's what I was saying, because it's like in like 99% of these, it's like a white person that's doing this. And then Western Oregon, I think it's Western Oregon or Northern Oregon University, they've gotten rid of D's and F's for this upcoming school year. So
They got rid of D's nuts.
Yep, only A's, B's, and C's. So your grade point averages are going to be skewed because it's just not fair. People learn differently, and so and as someone who got mostly D's and F's, like I don't know, I can't muster actually caring. It's just so fucking stupid to take that away. Just go pass fail. Like there's like, why just go A's, B's, and C's? It's like, really, you're gonna nerf fucking everything?
So they're getting into like participation trophy like territory in school.
No, it sounds like everybody's getting a What's Up trophy. Jason, you got to walk your dog a lot. Any thought on these hikers?
Well, I think the reason that they're pointing out that these people are experienced hikers is they're just trying to say, this isn't just some asshole who like took a walk and got lost. It's like, this is somebody who like the guy whose body was just found, like he like went off on a planned 5-day hike, and then
he trail mix.
He picked up at a certain place, like he made arrangements. But then interestingly, even though he was an experienced hiker, he didn't actually register his hike with like the Forestry Service or whatever the natural, whatever the fuck service that was.
Megan's Hike website.
Like he didn't like register so that the rangers would know that there was a person who was supposed to be going from here to here, which is why they couldn't find him. So I think it's kind of a way of saying, look, even experienced hikers fuck up. So, have some appropriate caution when you're planning on taking these trips, kind of a thing. I don't know. But also I think it's probably just a style guide thing. Like somebody like at the New York Times probably said, okay, we're going to call them experienced hikers. And then that just kind of like got extended out into the rest of the country. You know what I mean?
It's horseshit is what, the experienced hikers term. It's horseshit.
I will disagree with one thing, Jason. Experience or not, it still is just some asshole.
That's true.
All right. Well, I think we've discussed the topics thoroughly enough. You guys feeling good? All right. Let's do a little break before we go into the ultimate final Mount Doom, throw the ring of Battle of the Bads into the fires of Mount Doom of the finals. So I guess that's good. We're good. Cool.
Sweet.
Well, I think that does her for this week. Very well done, guys. Excellent work as usual. All right, so that'll do it for this week. Meaningful Times with Friends. Another excellent discussion. Hopefully, you got something out of it. And so say our goodbyes. Nathan from Newark.
Bye.
Dan. Jason on location, and we'll be back with the final epic battle of the Bads. I've been Mean Dave. Have a great fucking time. Whatever. Peace.